Okay, I think we can get started. I mean, we have 17 participants now. If there's still some more to come, they can happily join in. Well, first of all, thank you, all of you for joining us today. For those who don't know me yet, my name is Philipp Mayer, and I'm one of the co-founders and COO of Retraced. Together with our CDO, Peter, who's also in the call here, I'm responsible for the product development at Retraced. And this is why I'm more than excited to see so many of you that are eager to jump into this field of transparency to ensure more responsible and sustainable business practices along your entire value chain. So getting started, what is on the agenda today? Quick question, can everybody see my screen? That's right. Yeah. Good. Okay. So what's on the agenda today? I will first do a small recap and tell you what supply chain transparency actually means, why it is important, and how Retraced can support you to become one of the pioneers in the field. Then I'll jump into our platform to show you our new features that we recently developed and quickly guide you through how you can get started with your journey towards full transparency. Afterwards, I will then hand over the mic to our CEO, Lukas, so that he gives you some market insights, which we have learned along the way over the past couple of months, talking to a lot of different brands, suppliers, CSR managers, marketing managers, which was really exciting. And yeah, he can maybe clear up some misconceptions about supply chain transparency. And then finally, we will end this webinar with an open Q&A session where you can just ask anything that's on your mind. Okay, I'd say let's get started. So many times transparency actually gets confused with traceability, but traceability is actually just one aspect of transparency, because tracing a product and verifying the origin of a product doesn't necessarily give any information about the ethical and sustainable business practices in the supply chain. So what transparency actually means is that companies should not only where their production is happening, but to know what is happening deep down in the supply chains in order to communicate this internally, but also to external stakeholders. So this was a quick recap, because for us it's really important to differentiate between traceability and transparency. And why is transparency so important? I mean, you probably have various intrinsic motivations of why you want to know what's happening in your supply chain, but there are basically three major reasons why you would want to become more transparent. And the first reason is the rising demand for sustainability. The younger generations are becoming more and more conscious in their buying behavior. They prefer to consume products that are responsibly sourced and want to make sure that they don't fall victim to simple marketing claims. So what they do is they research and compare products based on sustainability and ethics, and they really try to gather as much information as they can get about the products, and not only compare the products based on the best price and the best style anymore. Then not only the consumers are researching products and brands, but there's also an increased reputational risk from media and NGOs who are looking for brands that are making claims that cannot be backed with proof. And thirdly, which is not regarding external stakeholders and let's say branding or marketing, but having a transparent overview of all your suppliers lets you better plan productions, better manage your compliance, and also identify possible bottlenecks and improvement possibilities in your entire value chain. So yeah, as I just said, so not only from a sales and marketing perspective, transparency is important, but also to improve your internal operations management. Now that we know what transparency means and why it is important, we want to know how we can measure it. And for this, we're using this really nice, let's say, graph from the Harvard Business Review. And what is important to be in order to measure transparency are basically two different dimensions. On the y-axis, you can see the supply chain scope, so measuring how deeply you as a company interact with your supply chain. And on the x-axis, it's the transparency milestones. So determining the actions that you are taking to ensure ethical and sustainable business practices. And most brands are still, I'm not sure whether you can see my, my mouse, but most brands are still part of the majority or early majority, meaning that they have a code of conduct and maybe some certifications in place internally and also for the direct suppliers. But more advanced companies are the early adopters and innovators that go deeper into their supply chains. They trace badges and communicate this openly to their consumers. And what's most interesting here is to see that large fashion retailers, or especially fast fashion retailers such as H&M and Esprit, already picked up on this, and they are currently mapping their supply chains down to the raw material. They have also first pilot projects running in which they trace production badges from farm to store using blockchain technology. So this is a reminder that we shouldn't miss out on this, and that now is really the time to act. So based on this, and in order to move brands from this majority to become an innovator, we at Retraced, we have developed a platform that is based on these 5 steps towards full transparency. So number 1 is map your supply chain to identify suppliers and get a better overview of all the parties involved and to really better understand the flow of goods. Then the next step is that you gather like the important and really relevant information in your supply chain to get a better understanding of the sustainability and the ethics in your supply chain, meaning this can be certifications, lab reports, different standards in the supply chain. And once we have done that, we start with the tracing. I said before, I wanted to differentiate between tracing and transparency. And here you can clearly see this tracing part is just one aspect of the entire scope of transparency. So tracing is now, once we have mapped the supply chain, once we have gathered the information from the supply chain, we can trace the journey of the products to verify the chain of custody. So we want to know if the product was really produced in the way it was supposed to be produced. The next step is then number 4, monitor and engage. So you want to monitor your supply chains, because while tracing your products, you will most likely find information gaps or things that can be improved in your supply chains. And now's the time to really define which actions need to be taken into your supply chain in order to make sure that your business practices and your entire supply chain are as sustainable and as ethical as possible. And then the final step is to transparently communicate your efforts internally as well as externally. So this means that you can communicate this, your transparency towards the end consumer, but it can also be an investor, it can be an auditor, it can be an NGO, but also internally, because you need this single source of truth where like all departments can like go to find, okay, how does our supply chain actually look like? What has happened in the production, so that, let's say, marketing can make the right claims for the specific products. All right, so this was the recap, and now it's actually time to show you the system. Okay, I didn't want to do that. How can I stop sharing? Yes, like this. Give me a second. All right. This is our new system. I always like to start with this tracing overview, as this is, let's say, the heart of our system. It is the place where all the information comes together. It's basically the first time that you'll have an overview of all your suppliers. You can see how they interact with each other, which standards and certificates are being held by the different suppliers. And you can also see what kind of information is missing. Here, for example, that there are no claims for the packaging paper supplier. So this means, as I just said, like we have built this single source of truth for every member of the company or every department, something that at least from all the brands that we work with, they haven't had this before. And before getting into detail here with the tracing overview, let's actually start in the beginning. The beginning is the supplier overview. So as mentioned before, the first step towards full transparency is mapping your supply chain. And so what we need to do is that we need to add every company that we are working with. And the beauty actually of this overview is that once a supplier is in the system, the information will be updated by any stakeholder collaborating with the supplier. So this can be either the supplier itself or another brand that is working with the supplier, or even a supplier of the supplier. So this means that you won't have to maintain all the information only by yourself, but you can really build on this network effect that we are having. Let's jump into one of the suppliers that we have filled with some information. So each profile can be filled with all relevant information, such as the name, contact information, production data, the address, of course, and you can also fill in any type of information that will be relevant for you later on whenever you want to show this to the end consumer. And in the second tab, we have our claims. Muted. Oh, thank you. Is the claims. So for each and every company, you can you can upload the certifications and standards that are in place for the supplier. So meaning that, for example, here you have the blue sign certificate. You can upload the code of conduct that was signed by the supplier, and well, basically any type of document that is relevant for you. It can also be audit reports, so that you have one place where you can find all relevant documents for your suppliers. So basically how this overview, how this helps you is that you can get rid of all the Excel files that you currently have or file drives, so that you can better manage your compliance. From working with brands, also larger brands, we have realized this, that there's not one tool that they have so far that helps them to really manage their compliance in one place, but they have to work with 3 or 4 different systems. Each of the certifications, they have their own system, and sometimes information just get lost because everything is distributed, not centrally, but like very decentralized. So you can, give me a second, what's the next thing I want to show? Yeah, like actually the entire claim overview. So this is just for one specific company. If you click on all claims, you can see all certifications and standards in one place. So you can filter them by company, by audit name, or even by expiration date, so that on one view, you will never forget any audits anymore, or you will be reminded when a certificate is running out. When a certificate is actually like out of date, you can just open it and directly request an upload, the new upload directly out of the system. So if a user from the supplier is in the system, you can just click on this button, and he will be notified to please upload a new document that is relevant for you. So in this case, it would be the blue sign from Ginny Ginnes, and he will get an email, upload it, and you don't have to write any extra email for that. Yes, this is the claiming part. Now that we have filled in all the companies and we have added all kind of supply chain information with regards to sustainability and ethics, we have our product list. And every single product needs to be set up and managed through this tab. If we go, for example, into the demo t-shirt, you can fill out the name, what kind of category it is, how many materials are in there, you can add the photos. So all the information that will then later on also be shown to the end consumer. And here is the part where you map the supply chain. We built this in the easiest way, that you just need to click on the plus and add the specific supplier that is responsible for a certain production step. So we add, for example, Met Supply. If the company is not in your list yet, so if you had forgotten to add this company before, you can just create the company on the fly directly while making the supply chain. So we add it, and now you can see this exclamation mark here. This is because the company needs to be linked to another company. In this case, we need to link the t-shirt manufacturer with Met Supply. And now we can fill in, this is optional, but if you really want to use our system for operational purposes, you can fill in what kind of fabric, for example, is being sourced and the quantity. So how much fabric is being sourced from the t-shirt manufacturer to Met Supply. Whenever you have created such a supply chain and saved the supply chain, and now let's say we have created the supply chain for the short sleeve t-shirt, and now you have a long sleeve t-shirt that has exactly the same supply chain, you don't need to recreate the entire supply chain again. All you need to do is choose the specific supply chain that you have used for the t-shirt before, and it will be shown directly here. So I can, for example, show you the supply chain for this t-shirt, and you can then just save the product and continue with the ordering. Down here, you can add the variations. So if you have a t-shirt in a couple of different colors, like black, gray, and white, you can add these. And if you even want to add the different sizes or another attribute, you can also do this. The SKU here in the back is relevant only for later on, whenever you want to connect Retraced to your online shop. So this is in order to link a product page in your online shop to the specific supply chain information that we have saved here on Retraced. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. That's all you need to do to set up the product. The next step now, in order to start the tracing, is the order placing. So we need to click on orders, create an order. Let's say we are going to produce a t-shirt, and it's going to be 100 black t-shirts. Order place, and we get to the tracing overview, the one that I've showed you in the beginning. And when you place an order, each of our suppliers or your suppliers will receive a notification with a request to upload a proof document. The proof document can either be a transaction certificate, a delivery slip, or an airway bill. So basically any type of document that proves that there was a flow of a physical good from supplier A to supplier B. For another order, I can give you an example. So if you click on the links between the different suppliers here, for example, you can see in which order these suppliers were being part of. And here's the proof that needs to be uploaded. Here, for example, there's no proof uploaded yet, so we still have the exclamation mark. Here's the proof already uploaded, and we can click on it, and we can see, can you still see my screen? Yeah, okay. You can see the transaction certificate from the farm to the ginning mill. I gave another example of an airway bill, for example. This is also a proof that is good enough to verify that there was a flow of goods from one supplier to another. Yeah, as mentioned before, this overview is like the heart of our platform. So here you can monitor your supply chain. You can see which documents are missing, like here, for example. And yeah, you can also see in real time which sub order has been already fulfilled or not. So here right now in this order, I can see that this sub order has been fulfilled. This sub order has also been fulfilled, but from the weaving spinners to Fabi's fabric, they are still not ready yet, or at least the document is not uploaded. So after a certain time, I can send an automated reminder to them that they please provide the specific proof, or if the product has really not been fulfilled yet, I will then be notified. Okay, this is basically the tracing, the most important aspects of the tracing. But now let's imagine the tracing is done and we want to communicate our efforts to the end consumer. So let's go back to the products. Let's go to the jeans and have a look at the badges. For this, we have worked together with Elevate and BSD Consulting to define social and environmental sustainability badges for products. And the purpose of these badges is to, let's say, translate the standards and certificates into an easy consumer-friendly language. This means that, for example, if you receive a badge for fair working conditions, your suppliers need to have one of these certificates or adhere to one of these standards. So if you are, for example, you as a brand, you're a member of the Fair Wear Foundation, your suppliers need to be audited by the Fair Wear Foundation, and then you get the badge for all the products that were produced at this supplier. The same goes to no hazardous chemicals, where we also have defined relevant certifications and standards that can verify that there are no hazardous chemicals in the final product. These badges will then be visible for every product once the Retraced widget is connected to your online shop, or if you have a QR code or an NFC tag in your product, it can be scanned and then also be seen by the end consumer to give them on the first side a very nice overview of how sustainable and how ethically produced the product actually is. And this is pretty much it. It was a very fast run through, but are there any questions until now? Otherwise, I would hand over now to Lukas so that he can give you the market insights. But I'm very happy to answer any question. I guess that's no. Then Lukas, you can continue.
All right. Let me try to share my screen with you. Can everyone see my screen? Huh? No? The wrong one. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. That should be better now, right? Perfect. Fantastic. Yeah, thanks a lot, Philipp, for the introduction to into the system. Yeah, we promised that we would also give you some insights into the market before we move into, like, let's say, a more broader Q&A session later. And we want to focus today, let's say, on the biggest barriers we always stumble upon when we speak to brands, experts, and people in the scene in the fashion industry when we say, hey, why don't you move into transparency? And it's actually super interesting to see that it's, let's say, that you can always break them down towards 3 major barriers that the brands or the people see when they speak about transparency and why they say they can't move into this field. The first one is let's say, one of the most famous ones. It's like, yeah, right now it's definitely not the time, especially now with Corona. Like, how should we do that? There are different other things that we should work on, and probably the market is not ready anyways. So let's just wait a little longer. The other one is, well, transparency is expensive, and it's super time consuming. It just takes a lot of effort to actually map the supply chains. And the last one is, then yeah, even if I would have the time, even if the market would be right, I may be just too small or not relevant enough, and I don't have, let's say, the abilities to actually make sure that my supply chains get transparent. And we want to actually give, like, kind of our perspective on these 3, let's say, key problems that we always see or that we get told by others. And the first one is, theoretically, the next one is that actually the time is now. So this reason to say let's wait is something that we see rather critical. You can see that the market of transparency is moving extremely fast. I mean, Philipp was already mentioning earlier, when you look at H&M, if you look even at Penny as a discounter in Germany, as a supermarket, they even start to trace their pineapples and their bananas. So obviously the market is moving fast, and this traceability and transparency aspect is coming forward. The same thing was already predicted by McKinsey last year when they made, like, let's say, a little survey with 64 CEOs in the scene, and they said sustainability and transparency are currently the hot topics and kind of the most important focus areas that they look into. And I think this shows that waiting might be just the wrong move, because you will be probably always moving behind, especially, let's say, us, that we try to be innovators, that try to push the boundaries of sustainable fashion, should also have a look at that and see that we also move in the right direction. The stakeholders ask for it. I think that's also very, very clear. I mean, we have seen, I think it was like around 3-4 weeks ago, when Zalando said that they expect by 2023, so within the next 3 years, every brand that is selling on their platform to be sustainable and transparent. yeah, 3 years is only 3 years. So starting now probably makes sense. And also, let's say from the consumer side, we see that this whole topic of consumer empowerment, being able to understand where the products come from, how they have been manufactured, what the impact is, and if the products are produced with the same values that I stand for as a consumer, becomes more and more, let's say, present in the consumer behavior. Same thing again from another report from McKinsey, where it said with this topic of radical transparency is super important because consumers just don't trust the marketing slogans of us fashion brands anymore. And we need to make sure that we can convince them and see that they actually, that what we say is actually true, and that we can kind of gain their trust again and their loyalty when they consume on our pages. And the third one is, especially with this topic of Corona right now, kind of present for all of us, that I say actually now is the perfect time, because the first thing is there's anyways very strong interdependency between a brand and all the suppliers in your supply chain network. So you need to speak to them anyways right now. So why not just try to even become a little closer, try to tackle this whole issue together. And this works best through connectivity and, let's say, supply chain flexibility. What is the capacity right now? How does it look like for you on your side? Let's try to exchange problems, solutions, and let's try to kind of overcome this crisis together. Yeah, and I mean, as always, the next crisis will come. So after crisis, before crisis. So I guess you should start with this before the next crisis in front of us. And we are again, let's say, shocked by the outcome and the results. So maybe work on it before. The next one is this thing of transparency is expensive. Yes, transparency takes time, and it is, of course, related to a lot of effort, but we always try to make sure that brands should see it more as a business case decision. Yes, it is connected to effort and costs, but the outcome and the positive aspects on the other side should not be neglected. Yeah, the first one is really on this, let's say, operational side, because the more transparent you become, the more efficient you can start to manage your whole sustainability compliance. You don't have to start to prepare for an audit 3 months before because you need to look for the documents here, you need to speak to your supplier there, but you have always an up-to-date file and documents ready whenever an audit is coming, so that you don't need to check for ages, like where the documents are, where the data is coming from, but you have it all at hand at all times. You get a better overview over your supply chain. This will probably help you to see when something is going wrong in your production. Delays can be avoided. You will probably even have shorter production times because you see what is going on. You know where your raw material is coming from. You can speak to them before, and you can, let's say, warn them that an order will come. So everything will be just shorter. And as a third point, of course, also more flexible. Because if you start to interact with your suppliers, you will also get a better understanding and feeling what's going on. And of course, this will help you in, let's say, all aspects, because even probably the product development process might become shorter because you know where your raw materials come from, how they might be able to help you in developing your products, and how to deliver the raw materials fast in order to move forward. So this is, let's say, the operational side. So something for you more internally when it comes to deciding for transparency. But you see the same effect, or even another very positive effect on, let's say, the outside communication. We're, let's say, live already for 5-6 months now, and we started to do a little A/B testing on the Kano website for 2 weeks, and this was from the beginning of June to the 14th of June. So it's actually just 2 weeks old, and we had 30,000 visitors on our website at that time. And what we experienced is we split the two groups of consumers coming to our website in the one group that is actually seeing our plugin and all the transparency on the product page, and the other group that is seeing nothing when it comes to transparency. And the result is extremely positive. The conversion rate has been lifted up by around close to 20% when people are seeing the transparency. And I think this can really tell you that there's obviously a strong demand from the consumer side for this whole topic of traceability, transparency, and, let's say, the respective trust that comes with it, that people really believe in what you tell them when it comes to marketing. And I think latest, if you see these two sides, the operational efficiency and this, let's say, this drive for more sales, transparency can really become a business case. So by becoming more transparent and investing in this field, you can really take something with it. And then the thing that you don't know where to start. Transparency, what does it even mean? Where do I start? What should I actually do? And the thing is, and that we actually try to help and always try to stress, is that transparency is not a final state, but actually more continuous process. And for every process, you need to start somewhere. And so that's what we suggest. Give it a try, see how far you come. On average, that is what we experience with the first 20 to 25 brands on our platform, that they start to go down and map tier 1 suppliers and maybe tier 2 suppliers. So let's say the first line behind their first suppliers, so the first line of indirect suppliers, if you want to say, call them like that. But just by starting to work on the transparency, they will automatically and very naturally come down 50% deeper. So the moment they start mapping and talking to the suppliers and the suppliers of your suppliers, they start to get up to level tier 3 or even tier 4, showing a great improvement and of course already a huge depth in the tracing process. And then of course, as a next step, try to enrich all the supplier profiles. Philipp was showing it, you have a lot of flexibility, which kind of documents you want to store, which kind of information you want to store, how many employees, when was it founded, and all these things. Create these profiles and create the single point of truth, because this will really help you, not only in your sustainability department, but for every other person in the company, because you suddenly can really base your supply chain management decisions on up-to-date information, on really something that everyone knows is correct and is constantly updated, so that you don't have to guess, yeah, maybe this material comes from there, but I'm not really sure. This is not how you make a decision. You need to know this information in order to be able to push forward and actually improve something in your supply chains. And again, by doing that, you will naturally get into contact with all your suppliers. And by doing so, you of course are also able to get deeper naturally, because you will just ask them, hey, where do you actually get our raw materials from that you need for our products? And they will probably tell you, they will just say, yeah, sure, here's our supplier. Many of you are already certified. So there is actually, let's say, the must have that they have this information ready. So they need to have them ready for you. And that's amazing. Just talk to them, start the connection with them, and you will get deeper and deeper naturally over time. This was actually it. We don't want to bother with you more facts and everything, but we would love to help you maybe answer some questions that we haven't raised or answered today. So please feel free to just raise a hand or ask questions, because I think this will be then a more interactive session than when we start to go on presenting everything frontally from here. All right. Yeah, exactly. So do it via chat. Do it just by raising your voice if there's something, maybe something more technically, maybe the solution was shown too quickly, maybe there are more questions. Yeah, so please feel free to ask.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Daniel. I'm CTO at Brava, and I have some technical questions, probably more related to technical stuff. I would like to know how integrable would be the system. Like, do you have APIs to push information on all this kind of stuff?
Maybe I can jump in there to take over so Lucas is not lost. So yeah, our API, we have an open API, a REST API. It's very easy to interact with that. Basic, OAuth exchange, and then you can just interact with the API if you wish to. But in the end of the day, you can also just use, of course, our web application. But yeah, we offer all the pushing of information proofs and so on through an open API. The reason is for that, maybe to mention that we have, of course, some companies who would like to use in-house software and connect to us, and we provide this opportunity as well. So does that, I think, yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah, kind of does. My thing is because we have an ERP where we already upload all the product information or supply chain information, and I would like to integrate it with your app so we don't have to do the work twice.
Do everything again.
Yeah, exactly. So ERP or SCM solutions are very common for us. So it depends actually how the system is built up, but we can just talk in detail. So there are different kind of ERP solutions. Some are in-house, some are cloud-based. So it depends how it's built up. But in the end of the day, of course, if you have even a developer from your side, it's even easier because our API description is just documented online.
Cool. And the second question would be, as I understand from the demo you have made and what you have talked, each individual in your platform would benefit from other people certifying their supply chain? Like there's a network effect, or it doesn't work like that?
Yeah, Lukas, you want to answer?
Well, I was just looking to Philipp, but I can also jump in. Yeah, yes. So I mean, it's kind of our, let's say, dream and vision to really make sure that we can create a supply network together with everyone. I mean, we already see it to a certain extent that other, let's say, certifiers try to pool audits together to split costs, and we would love to do the same thing. Yeah, to see who is going through which supply chain, share the effort, share the knowledge. Yeah, at least to the information that are public available. To make sure that the effort for each of us is as low as possible. And I think this is something that we can all benefit from, and that we want to drive further and further over time. Maybe not only with the brands and the suppliers in one network, but maybe even all the stakeholders coming from the outside, like certifiers or auditors in the long run, to be also part of this this network to directly link in and confirm an audit through the platform.
Perfect. I wanted also to congratulate you for the presentation and for showing us, and thank you for all the marketing insight as well.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks so much. I saw that there's also a question in the chat. Could you please mention briefly how the compliance management is working and elaborate on that? Philipp, you want to take over here?
Yes, I hope you can hear me. Yeah, exactly. So why we say it's also compliance management is that it's the first time that there is a solution out there where you have all the suppliers deep down in the supply chain as well in one system. Usually, if you work with ERP solutions and even with SCM solutions, usually it's just like your direct suppliers, meaning the tier 1 suppliers, sometimes tier 2, but you don't go further than that. And in our solution, you can gather information. You have the profiles of all your suppliers and along the entire supply chain. And you can fill it with information regarding the standards, the certifications, the code of conduct, audit reports, also CAPs, so corrective action plans that need to be carried out at a certain supplier. So you might know this from the Fairware Foundation. So after an audit, you get a report and it tells you what needs to be improved at your supplier. And with our tool, you can track the progress, and you can also do that jointly with other brands, because usually every brand gets their own audit report and then every brand works on their own corrective action plan. And this is not really consolidated. There's no collaboration, or like very little collaboration between the brands. In our solution, you would see what needs to be done at the supplier, and all the brands can work together towards like a common goal. And this is why we say that our tool is very powerful for compliance management, and not only to your direct suppliers, but along the entire value chain. Any other question?
I have a question, guys. Hey, actually 2 questions. First of all, how many logins, like how many team members can work on your app, like on the applications? Let's start there.
So our pricing is based on supply chain and not on users. So you can we want as many people as possible working in the system. So meaning that you should also invite all your suppliers and all your team members for the different departments. So everybody should be part of the system, and there's no extra cost per user. It's based on the supply chains.
Okay, good. Then my second question is, again, what you already explained with the compliance. We started our brand 6 years ago with the premises like full transparency, and back then it was fairly hard to go beyond tier 1. And still now, or when I would go to, say, a fabric wholesaler that's sitting here in Germany, and ask like, where my fabric comes from, and they would be going, that's a trade secret. So how can I go beyond that? I mean, though I'm GOTS certified company, they're GOTS certified as well. So I know they have this information, but is there a way, like with your software, they can go around their notion that's a trade secret and actually figure it out?
Okay, here's where it's get very difficult. Absolutely, because we cannot do any magic, unfortunately. So it is about collaboration with suppliers, and it's about making them understand the benefits of being transparent as well. Because I mean, as we explained before, the entire market is moving into this direction. So it should also be in their interest to be open to transparency if they want to be competitive in the future. Because I mean, in the long run, I mean, right now you're still working with them, but it could be for you a reason why you don't want to continue working with them in the future, because they are not transparent. You cannot really ensure the chain of custody. You cannot be 100% sure that the products that are in, I mean, even though it's got certified, you still want to know where it actually comes from. So I mean, we also have our own shoe brand, as Lukas mentioned before. And for us, that was, for example, a reason why we changed our leather supplier, because they also didn't want to give us any information. And so we made that move because for us, transparency was more important. And there are enough suppliers out there, and there are suppliers that are willing to open up. They see the benefits, and they are the ones that are going to get the better business in the future.
Yeah, because we believe strongly that there is no sustainability without transparency. So it's greenwashing.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Thank you for your question.
Thanks.
I mean, maybe just to add here, I think that this was very interesting, or what we always try to do is when this happens, that we're always happy to help. So we have, of course, some documentation ready for suppliers to show, kind of to really pinpoint down what are the advantages, how can it help, but they're also part of this platform. Because of course, I mean, trade secret, yes, this could be a reason, but I mean, opening up and showing yourself to the world and to the consumers can also be, of course, a great benefit to actually gain business. Yeah. So the more you close yourself off from the world, the less outreach you have, and the less brands will actually find you, right? So trying to be transparent, showing that you have nothing to hide, could again be by itself a huge advantage, and something that we can, of course, always try to show to the brands or to the suppliers at that point. Any other question from someone? Otherwise, I mean, I think it's like 10 more minutes, but I think we can also otherwise close this call. First of all, big thanks to everyone. I guess we will organize these kind of meetings on a regular basis, because there will be always new facts, new ideas coming up. And as probably will always kind of limit to the users of our platform. So when you're interested in kind of being part of these, let's say, meetings, becoming part of this transparency movement that we want to push forward in the next couple of months / years, get an account. As always, I mean, it's completely free. It's a great start. And this is actually what we want to give you with from today is, well, just get going. I mean, I think this is something that we can all take with from today. There's nothing to lose. There's zero costs. You can just get started. Try to see how far you come. Challenge yourself. I mean, I think this is already kind of a super great test for yourself. If you start mapping a supply chain, maybe even use a white piece of paper if you want to start with this, but see and challenge yourself. How far down do you come in your supply chain, and where maybe do you have limitations in the knowledge you would like to have and you would like to see? Next to that, I think there's a lot of meetings already scheduled for the next days and also for next week, but whoever hasn't reached out to us yet for a follow-up call or follow-up meeting, feel free to do so anytime. You have our email. You can find it otherwise on our website. And we are happy to share any kind of insights, tips, and experience that we have in the field of transparency and around our solution. So please come back to us and see what we can do for you. And yeah, I mean, finally, if you already have an account and you already start to map your supply chain, start tracing them. Again, see how far you come. Try to interact with your suppliers, interact with your manufacturer, try to get them on the platform. Because it helps you to also get the information directly from them. See how fast and how easy you can kind of interconnect with them, share data, share knowledge to push this whole field of transparency. And I think with this, we can probably close this meeting. And yeah, as Tari said, now we recorded everything. So if you're interested in the audio line of this call, feel free to reach out to us and we're happy to share it with you. Thank you.
One more addition to the free start. Yeah, Lucas just mentioned you can just subscribe, you can get started for free. And actually, if you just want to get started with this, let's call it compliance management again, this is completely for free. So you can put in all your suppliers into the system. You can upload their certificates. You can get the reminders whenever a certificate is not valid anymore. The moment the pricing starts is whenever you start the tracing. So whenever you map the first supply chain, well, the first supply chain is also for free and the first product, but once you have a second supply chain and do the tracing. So there's actually no reason that holds you back to get that information to our system. Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to add that. And then, yeah, well, thank you everyone for joining us today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and yeah, we're there for you. Thank you. Bye-bye.